Hey everybody, it's Nick, and I'm here to talk with you today, or show y'all today something pretty cool. I'm friends with a business immigration lawyer. Her name is Marieta Oslanec. She is the kind of person who can help our students, connect English students to um, to uh, to get a new visa in the USA in order to let's see in order to in a business in the USA. So Marietta has helped a lot of people to get the E2 and the L1 visa, which are visas for people who want to start a business or invest in a business in the USA. It's a great opportunity for our students to learn about what it takes in order to become one of those visa holders, if you will. Those visas allow somebody to start a business and do awesome things in the USA. And as you can see from the caption that I wrote, Marietta herself is an immigrant who started a business in the USA as well. So she's here today to talk with students, and she has some questions for me. I have some questions for her. It should be a pretty cool opportunity to learn about what it takes to do these things in the USA. So there she is. Everybody can see her. Hi, Marietta. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you, Nick?
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks for being here today, and thanks for joining us. I'm sure the students are going to really appreciate it. So why don't I start with, well, I'm sorry?
Hear me well, or do I need to plug in my mic?
I think it's okay. Everybody, I believe, can hear you pretty well. I can hear you. That sounds a little delayed, but I think that's going to be okay.
Okay. Let's see. Let me try to do this. How?
I think it's better. That's better.
Okay, whatever. Let's do
Okay,
this.
cool. All right. Okay, so let's get started. So why don't you tell us your story, Marietta? Tell us a little about your past and then how you arrived at this point of being a business immigration lawyer, able to help people with their own goals.
Sure. So I guess my story started 11 years ago when I decided to move to Chicago from Slovakia. And back then, I actually started as ESL student. So, I moved to Chicago and started pretty much from the scratch, enrolled to ESL school, and then I decided to apply for law school because I already had law degree, but I couldn't really practice law in the US. So I applied
Uh-huh.
to law school, and then obviously once I graduated, became a licensed lawyer. I was looking for a way how to stay in the US legally. So I was looking for employer, and I had very difficult time to find employer. And so basically I was left out with no option but to start my own business. So that's how I started
Mm-hmm.
the company, and then that's how I started to practice immigration law. First, it was more general immigration, and then later on, I realized that I'm very passionate helping entrepreneurs and people who want to start their own businesses. So that's how I started, my own company, my business, my niche evolved from general immigration to more specific business immigration, and then here I am.
Well, I think it's pretty cool that it's you're helping people who have been on a very similar path to yourself. A lot of lawyers don't get the chance to help people who have been through their really almost their exact situation.
Yeah,
You're going to be able to help people.
absolutely exact situation. I literally started with $700 in my pocket, and I started with ESL, right? And then, I was forced to, reinvent myself, especially my legal status, right? So over the years, I've been on all kinds of different visa types, and then once I graduated law school, I still couldn't find the H-1B sponsor. So I'm like, screw this, I'm starting my business because I want to, right? And so literally I am doing what I'm doing for other people is the same path I've been on. And so obviously once you get the visa and you start a business, then you have another challenge. You have to, scale the business, make sure everything is running, and then, so it's a never ending growth, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, great. But it's so good that you've already been through it, so you can speak from your experience. I think our students will really appreciate that when they start working with you on this stuff. Well, let's see. Tell me a little bit more specifically about what immigration biz does for people.
So let's say you are in the US. Let's apply to your students. So if they are in the US and they are ready to change their status right now, if they're on F1 visa and they want to change the status, they want to start the business, their own business, then that's where I come in. That's where I help them. I help them to, first of all, we brainstorm the business, because sometimes they don't even know what kind of business they want to start, or they're not really sure. So on top of practicing the business immigration, I also coach people and I consult. And so we sort of lay out the strategy how to make this happen. So first we're gonna brainstorm the business type, then we're gonna lay out the complete strategy, and then we're gonna incorporate. So we incorporate the business. Once we incorporate the business, we're gonna do everything that is necessary for the student to obtain a visa. The visa is either, that I'm focusing on, is either E2 or L. So if you are from a treaty country,
E2 or L, okay.
If you're not from a treaty country, we're gonna go with L. And then, along the way, the end goal would be to get a green card, obviously. For some people, not necessarily, but majority of people, they do wish to obtain a green card.
Okay, so the student can go from the F visa, which is what Connect English can do, and then they can make the change to an E2 or L1, but they have to establish a business and a business strategy very well in order to get one of those visas.
Absolutely, because some people, they think that, you start a business, you incorporate, which is kind of easy, but then when you want to you're going to invest substantial amount of capital, which is, by the way, not that scary. It sounds scary, but it's not.
Yeah.
We invested $50,000 and they got approved. So don't freak out if you hear substantial amount of capital. And again, it depends on the business type, but some people think that they just incorporate and wire the money and they are good to go. No, you're not. So I basically help with the whole thing, the whole process. And like you said, whoever is already in the US, it might be easier if the person change the status. However, I always advise to go back to your country, back to the home country, to apply through the US Embassy, so you actually can have the stamp in your passport.
That's important.
Right? Because right? If you're changing the status, you just change the status. You're not necessarily getting the stamp, right? And you can really travel.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, we do help students with the change of status inside the USA, and that's one difference. Is that, they're not going to get the actual physical visa inside of the passport. They'll get a paper permission, but it's not quite the same as having the physical visa in the passport that allows you to come and go in and out of the USA so easily and without issues and challenges. So that's important. Okay, well, that's the kind of thing that students can talk with you about individually and find out what's better. Should they do the change of status, or should they make a plan to go back to their country and do it as you recommended, by going to the embassy or the consulate back in their own country. So that's an important thing to consider. Okay, so that's my next question was going to be, how can F1 students use your help? So would you say just contact you and start making an early plan for the first steps, either to start the process in the USA or to go back to their home country? Would that be the first way that you could help an F1 student?
Well, if someone is ready, and let's say you have an idea, let's say you have a business idea, and let's say you have some amount of money, again, but if you don't have any money and you don't have idea, I cannot really help you.
Yeah.
So, idea, and you have some, let's just say $50,000, you're gonna, borrow the money from friends, family, and you want to start a business, then you can contact me, and I can help you. I can totally help you and take it from there. You don't have to leave the country. You don't need to do anything else. But like I said, you gotta have some general idea, at least, kind of business you want to start. Come to me, okay, tell me, I want to do this, I want to start business. What kind of business? Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that, if students start thinking about what they're passionate about, what they would like to start a business about, they can take a little bit of time to figure that out for themselves. I remember, a lot of my students are in their mid-20s, and I remember in my mid-20s, I wasn't quite sure yet what I wanted to do. But, if you're in the USA on a student visa, you have time. You can be in our program at Connect English. You can be learning general English, then you can move into TOEFL. You can be getting ready for the big exam, and you can even go on to a college program and then contact you at Immigration Biz. And so it's not like you have to make your mind up tomorrow, you know?
Absolutely. Like, don't force yourself. Like, if you
Yeah.
feel like you don't know yet what you want to do, like, just for the sake of staying in the US, I don't think it's wise. You know, if you force yourself just to be here, just to stay here, I don't think the outcome is going to be positive. I would rather,
Yeah.
like, if you want, you can study more. Like, that's what I've done. Like, first I started with the ESL classes, and then I enrolled to actually university. And it takes some time, right, to establish yourself and also improve the English, because obviously if you want to run business, you should have great English skills to be able to manage your business.
Exactly. I mean, I can tell you that, you know, as a business owner myself, you know, there were a lot of the skills that a lot of the skills and training were necessary before. I'm glad I didn't hurry into doing what I do. I was able to take my time and give myself the skills to that, so that when we started Connect English, you know, there was still a lot to learn, but I feel I was pretty prepared. And so in the case of helping our students, they can take their time. We can help them build the English skills they're definitely going to need in order to run a business, because you know, the language of business is English. And so you know, they can take their time. They can contact you, start building a plan for themselves in their mind, and then come back to you when they're ready to make it official and to use your services to get that E2 and L1 visa.
You know, I have over 300 videos on my YouTube channel, youtube.com. So those people who want to learn, you know, and who want to gather the information, they can totally jump in and watch the relevant videos and learn and prepare for what's coming next. But I also think that it's so important to believe in yourself, because I think that's the most important part. Like, you gotta believe in yourself, especially like you making big steps, right? Like, you coming from different country, you studying English, and then you want to start business. Like, you got to trust yourself. And I think the confidence, the self-trust will be developed on the way when you take the next step. And this is something that I always emphasize, and I tell this to my clients as well when they're making the shift from one country to another.
Yeah, believe in yourself. You know, I mean, a lot of people are afraid to take these big steps, but it's great to have the guidance and the help of someone like you who can say, I've been through this. Let me help you with the plan.
Right? Because you are also entrepreneur, right? You're not just running your, you know, you're not just ESL. I don't even know what's your title, director.
I'm the student services director.
Right. So like you are entrepreneur, so you know you can totally, you know, even like talk to your students about that, because itself it's challenging. It's not like like I'm just gonna become entrepreneur.
Yeah, it wasn't easy to do it. It didn't happen overnight, but it took a lot of work. We made a lot of mistakes, but we were ready for those mistakes, or we were prepared to deal with mistakes when they happened. And the schools have grown, and it has become, you know, it has become something I can be very proud of, which is, you know, the ability to help so many students build their English skills. And, you know, one thing I run into is that a lot of my students come to me, they come to me with low or intermediate English skills. They grow, they get stronger, they become better. Then they say, well, what's next? You know? And for me, I always recommend college and university. I say, get into college, go to university in the USA. But a lot of them say, well, I already have a master's degree from my country, you know, but so what do I do now? And, you know, in this case now, there's a new option, which is, let's help you start a business in the USA and use that master's degree plus your English skills to do something amazing, like start a business and to grow something, a project for yourself that fits your passions. Great. Well, I have just one more question for you, and then I'll take some questions from you. What's the best advice that you would give to someone who's thinking about using your program to start a business in the USA? What's the first best advice you would say?
I think honestly, like I said, you gotta have some money. You have to have. If you are broke, I can help you. But I already said that advice. I really believe that the best advice I can give is to believe in yourself. Like, be confident. Like, if you can pull it off, you can totally, like, you gotta have the belief. right? Because there are two types of clients I'm talking to. One of them, they have the plan, they have the idea, but they don't believe in themselves. They just have the fear that is holding them back. And then you have another type that is like, you know what, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Tell me what to do next, I'm doing it. And if you're in that place, you got it. You don't need to be afraid, like you're gonna get your visa, you know, you're gonna make it happen here and you're gonna succeed. But if you don't have the mindset, honestly, it's very difficult for me to help you, because once you get the visa, you know, you need to run the business. If you know of running the business, you're gonna fail and you need to leave the country. And you cannot even scale it, you cannot even go to a green card later on. So honestly, I think this is the most important advice I can give. And obviously work on your English, because if you don't speak English.
I like that one a lot. That's one I completely agree with. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's switch. You said you have some questions for me today about what Connect English can do for your people.
Sure.
You already have clients who would need the help of my schools in order to reach the same goals that we've been talking about. So let's hear them. What are your questions?
So I guess my question is, this is frequently asked question, how do I get F1 visa? What's the easy path? And I always tell them, enroll to ESL school. So how is the process? Let's say someone wants to enroll to your school. What is the process like?
Okay, well, it can seem a little complicated, but again, that's why I'm here to help. Like in your case too, you know, it seems complex, but with the guidance of somebody, it becomes pretty clear. The idea is, you know, the requirements to study at Connect English are an application form and an enrollment agreement. So just a simple document saying you understand the program, just a passport, and then a bank statement. And the bank statement has to show that you have significant money in the bank. It's not as much as what would be required for an E2 or L1 visa. It would be, generally, we recommend between $5,000 and $10,000 in the bank, depending on the length of your program. So it's a little bit more accessible for people when they want to come to use the F1 visa in the USA. Because the US government, they want to make sure you have enough money in your bank account to support yourself while you study. They don't want you to show up in the USA and have to live on the street, of course. So you have to show you have that support. And then at that point, the Connect English can issue what's called an I-20 form. The student has to pay some fees to Connect English and to the government then in order to activate the I-20 and get a visa interview. The student will go to a consulate or embassy and get an F1 visa interview. And that visa interview can be a little stressful, but it's going to help the student to get the F1 visa and then be able to come to the USA. So again, it's just some Connect English documents, basically a passport, and the Connect English documents, then a passport, then a bank statement, and then payment of the application fees and the government fees. And I would be able to help a student with all of those steps all the way through. I mean, it seems a little mysterious, but it's my job to guide students with exactly that process to make it more clear, like what you do for students in your own process.
So awesome. So basically, this, like, if the student is not in the United States, can he or she apply from outside of the US?
Absolutely. That's in fact the best way to do it. We can do what's called change of status. If a student comes into the country on a tourist visa and then realizes that this is a good opportunity to study, we can change them to an F visa. It's a complex process, and we usually encourage students instead to apply from their own country. Apply from Chile, apply from Turkey, apply from Brazil, apply from Korea instead, and get the F1 visa in your passport and to come to the USA. So we generally communicate with students outside of the USA who want to come into the USA with the F1 visa. So that's the preferred way, but we can help students do the change inside. We just recommend getting the visa from outside the USA first and then coming into the country.
And it's probably the same, the stamp, right? The visa stamp, like I already mentioned. So if you have the visa stamp, you literally travel back and forth and do the change of status thing when you can really travel. Okay.
Exactly.
Awesome. So how is it with the issuing of I-20 form? So once they submit the documents, you're going to issue the I-20 form, and then with the I-20 form, they go and they apply for F1 visa. Are there any cases of denial?
Once in a while, yes. We have probably about a 95% success rate at Connect English with approvals. Certain countries have a really high rate of approval, and we love that, of course. But there are some countries where it becomes more difficult, where the approval rate is low, and that's unfortunate because, I have seen some really good students who have the best motivations to come to the USA and learn, and the consulate makes it difficult for them. We help those students try again. Students can try multiple times to get the visa, and frequently on the second or third try, the consulate says, you know what, we think you are the right person to have a student visa and go to the USA. So it can be at times a little challenging with the consulate, but we can help with that. We've helped students from almost every country on earth to get the student visa, and we've had a very high success rate because we prepare the students for the visa interview very well. We let them know what's ready. And here's something important I want to add. There are really three things that a student has to show in order to get a student visa at the consulate. The student has to show academic intentions. They have to show that they really have a real good reason to study in the USA. Then they have to show significant financial reserves. So they have to show that they have enough money to live in the USA. We talked about that already. And the third one is that they have an intention to go back home after they finish their studies. And so in this case, they just have to say, look, I have a career back here, I have a family, or I have something to bring me back to my home country after the studies. But once they come to the USA, if they realize that opening a business is the right plan, they can still do that. They can change their mind and go to you and start the process to open a business in the USA. But those three things are important in getting the F1 visa. It's the academic intentions, the financial reserves, and the intention to finish studies and go back to the home country eventually. But again, they can change that later.
And I think I want to add to this, because these three intentions are the same with E2 visa. You have to have the intention to run the business. You have to have intention to return back home after. Well, just kind of paradox, because obviously you're coming here to establish the business, run the business, but still you have to show strong ties to home country. For some, you have to do that because this is a non-immigrant visa type. Same applies to F1. It's a non-immigrant visa type, and so obviously you have to show that intention to return back home, and also you need to show that you have strong ties.
Exactly. Those strong ties to the home country are important for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What other questions do you have?
Sure. So what about the family members? Like if you have a student who wants to bring spouse, kids, what's going to happen with these guys?
Yeah. If they're applying from overseas, then Connect English can issue an I-20 for the family members also. That would be most likely an F2 I-20, an I-20 for an F2 visa for a dependent. So that's definitely possible. We help a lot of families where mom and dad want to study, but the kids maybe are too young. If the kids are only 11 years old, they're not going to study and Connect English. So if they have an I-20 and an F1 visa, the students have to come and be in the program. They have to be in classes. But of course, a young child can't be in English classes, so they get an F2 visa. And
what if they don't want to study? What if just dad wants to go to school, but the spouse doesn't, and the child doesn't want to study? Then what?
That totally works too. You can either choose to have both parents using F1 visas and then have the children be dependents, or you can have dad be the F1 holder and mom can have the F2, and the child can have the F2 also, or vice versa. We have situations where the mom has the F1 visa and then dad and the son or the daughter stay home and they have the F2. So there are a lot of options for that. And in that case, when you want to use an F1 visa and an F2, we have to show even greater financial support. You have to show even more money in the bank before you come to the USA in order to show that you have enough to support the whole family while you're here studying. So that's important to consider. And we would answer those students for the questions. How much money is necessary in the bank account to show the consulate that they're going to live comfortably enough inside the USA while studying?
So let's be more specific. How much is, let's say, one semester in your school? If people want to actually enroll, how much should they expect to pay?
Well, the program is only $400, let's say $399 for 4 weeks of the program. And students generally pay in 4 week increments. So they'll pay for 4 weeks at a time at $399. So you can see it's pretty affordable to study in the schools. The more expensive part is life in San Diego. As you know, San Diego is a pretty expensive city, and it's a beautiful city, but it's expensive, and we call it the paradise tax. The paradise tax is the cost of living in a beautiful city. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you paid it for a long time, so you know how expensive it can be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so basically a good plan is to assume for an individual $2,000 per month to study and live in the USA in our schools. It is possible to go cheaper than that. You know, there are students who find a less expensive place to live, and they spend less money on partying and traveling and food, and it can be done for $1,000 a month if a student is super careful. But I always recommend showing more money than that per month available in the program. And most students stay in the program for between 3 months and a year. We have a lot of students who come in for just a month and they study for like a summer program, but that's usually a more recreational program. Most of our long-term students on the I-20, they're going to study for 3 months, 6 months, a year. And then hopefully we help them at that point to get into university or community college, or at this point we can start helping them join you and take the steps to open a business in the USA after they've finished improving their English.
Sure, sure. So I guess my last question would be, what's the maximum stay? And I know already the answer, right? I want you to say that.
Yeah.
What's the maximum period they can stay on F1 visa in this ESL college school?
Yeah, the official maximum is 3 years, but generally, you know, in an F1, it's really indefinite. When you have an F1, if you continue studying full time, you can continue being an I-20 holder with an F1 visa or with F status. So you can study for a long time. I have friends who started studying with Connect English 5 or 6 years ago, you know, back in 2012, and are now in university in the USA, still with an F visa.
Yeah.
But on the ESL program, there are some limitations. There are some, let's call them accreditation limitations, that the student has to continue making progress in the program. We can't let a student just sit in level 3 for a year and a half, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So the student has to move up through the levels and be making progress. Generally, the limit with Connect English ends up being about 18 months. We do have a number of students who've been in the program who arrived at level 1 with zero English. They speak nothing. And then 18 months to 2 years later, they're in the advanced classes. They're in the TOEFL program, ready to pass the test and get into university. So there are only kind of some loose limitations on the F1 visa in an ESL program. Students can come and be in an ESL program for a significant amount of time, but not forever. They have to move on and do something more with their education. Or now that we're working with you, they can switch over at that point to the E2 or the L1 visa and move on to a new phase in their life. So it's a long-term visa, and but as long as the student is making progress with their education, then it can go for a long time.
And I really appreciate you saying that, because I know for a fact there are schools out there who keep these students just to take money out of them, and they don't really care about any progress. And that's why I asked this question, because there are schools who literally just keep the status for their students, and they don't care about any results. So
exactly, you know, a lot of people call those a visa mill school, where there's no education expectation. You're just going there to get documents, and that's just an abuse. It's an abuse of the visa system. And at Connect English, we're very careful about making sure students are moving up. They're moving through the levels. They're getting stronger with their English. We're pushing them to join the TOEFL program, get into TOEFL, and we can even offer IELTS programs. Get ready to pass those tests and take that next step in your education, which is to go to college or university. Or now the option to take that next step to become a business owner in the USA and get that E2 or get the L1.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I think we should also mention our website. So if people want to reach out to you, where they can find you, and so what's your website?
Well, they can go to connectenglish.edu. We have 3 campuses here in San Diego. And if they go to connectenglish.edu, they can get the information about the school and about the ways we can help. Of course, you're going to see the links to Connect English I'll post the links to Connect English San Diego down below and make sure students can find it. Or you can just click on my name and I'll be very happy to answer questions for people who want to talk with me about the student visa. And so connectenglish.edu is our website, or they can find Connect English San Diego on Facebook. This video will be shared there as well.
And I will also share this video on my page, Immigration Biz. And for those who want to contact me, immigrationbiz.com, or just shoot me a message on Facebook, whoever needs.
Excellent. Okay, and I can, Marieta, we do have a lot of really good questions that have come up in the comments. And so I would say that after we finish this video in a few minutes here, you and I can go in and reach out to these people who have the questions about F1s, about changing, et cetera, et cetera. So if you do have questions about what Marieta or I can do for you, please add those in the comments, and then she and I will be happy to answer those questions and give you the right resources to make these choices and to take these steps for yourself for your future.
Sure, sounds great.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for being here today, Marieta. This has been even better than I expected. You did a great job. You're awesome. So,
well, thank you so much for having me. Fun talking to you.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'm sure we can do another one of these calls in the future, and we'll communicate about it. Thanks for being here. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.